paper copy, or what I can do is I can.
The fluorescent lights in Target always buzz a little louder at 3 a.m. I've worked the overnight stocking shift for 2 years now, and you get used to certain things: the emptiness, the echo of your footsteps down abandoned aisles, the way the store breathes when no one's watching. But that night in February, something changed. It started with a shopping cart. Most people don't think about shopping carts. They're just there, waiting at the entrance, occasionally drifting across parking lots when someone's too lazy to return them. Target carts are red, of course. Uniformly red. Except this one seemed redder somehow. I noticed it on my second break, positioned at the end of the health and beauty aisle. Just sitting there, empty. "Hey, Marcus," I called to my coworker restocking toothpaste. "Did you move a cart over here?" He barely looked up. "Nope." I should have just pushed it to the front, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the perfect way it was positioned, wheels aligned exactly parallel to the shelving. Or maybe it was the fact that it wasn't there when I'd walked past 10 minutes earlier. I left it alone. Not my department. An hour later, I was in housewares when I spotted it again. The same cart, positioned at the junction of 2 aisles. I looked around, but the overnight team was spread thin, 6 of us in a store that size. No customers, obviously. I approached it this time, examining it closely. Nothing unusual except for a small sticky residue on the handlebar. Could have been anything: soda, hand sanitizer, who knows what customers leave behind. But when I pushed it, the wheels moved silently. Most carts make that distinctive rattling sound, but this one glided like it was floating. I pushed it toward the front, leaving it with the others, and went back to my section. By 4 a.m., I'd almost forgotten about it. Almost. Just before our final break, Lisa, who worked electronics, came on the radio. "Is someone messing around? This isn't funny." Our supervisor, Darren, responded. "What's up? Someone keeps moving this shopping cart behind me." I turn around and it's just there. My skin prickled. I keyed my radio. "Is it empty?" A pause. "Yeah. I'll come check it out," Darren said. I couldn't help myself. I abandoned the case of paper towels I was unpacking and headed toward electronics. When I turned the corner, I saw Lisa standing with Darren, both staring at a shopping cart positioned in the middle of the aisle. The same one. I knew it instantly. "I'd put this at the front," I said. Darren gave me a look. "Sure you did." "I'm serious," I insisted. "This cart has been moving around the store all night." Lisa laughed nervously. "You guys are just messing with me, right?" Darren shook his head. "Look, let's just get back to work. We've got truck inventory to finish before opening." He pushed the cart toward the front, but I noticed how he wiped his hand on his pants after touching the handle. The rest of the shift was uneventful, until it wasn't. At 5:15 a.m., I was finishing up in grocery when the lights flickered. Just for a second. Short enough that I might have imagined it, except Marcus called out from 2 aisles over. "You see that?" Before I could answer, my radio crackled. It was Darren, his voice tight. "Who's in the security office?" Silence. "Guys, who's watching the cameras right now?" None of us were. That wasn't part of our duties during overnight shifts. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Just come to the office." The security office was a small room near the employee entrance, walls lined with monitors showing feeds from the store's cameras. All 5 of us clustered inside, which was against protocol, but Darren didn't seem to care. "Watch," he said, pointing to a monitor showing the main aisle running the length of the store. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a shopping cart rolled into frame. Moving steadily. No one pushing it. "That's the A3 camera," Darren said, voice flat. "This was recorded 20 minutes ago." We watched in silence as the cart moved smoothly down the aisle, made a perfect right turn, and disappeared from view. "It's just momentum," Marcus suggested. "Someone pushed it and walked away." Darren shook his head. "Watch the B7 feed. The cart appeared again, still moving, making another turn. "That's not physics," Lisa whispered. "It should have slowed down." "It's just a glitch in the recording," Darren said, but his face had gone pale. "Or someone edited the footage. Has to be." "Play it again," I said. He did. I noticed something I missed the first time, a faint distortion around the cart, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. "Can you zoom in?" Darren clicked a few buttons, enlarging the image. The quality degraded, but I could still make out the shimmer surrounding the cart. And something else. A smear of darkness reflected in the polished floor beneath it. But there was nothing above the cart to cast that shadow. "I'm calling the manager," Darren decided. While he stepped out to make the call, the rest of us stayed glued to the monitors. I noticed Marcus pulling up older footage. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "I don't know. Anything weird." He scrolled backward through the night. Nothing unusual until he hit 1:37 a.m. The cameras in the store all simultaneously flickered to static for exactly 3 seconds. "Power surge?" Lisa suggested. Marcus didn't answer, just kept rewinding. The same static appeared at 12:02 a.m. and again at 10:46 p.m., when the store was still open. "Check the entrance footage from closing time," I said. He pulled it up. Customers exiting as the announcements asked them to make final purchases. Standard closing procedure. But then I noticed something. "Stop. Go back a few seconds. There." A man had entered the store at 9:56 p.m., just 4 minutes before closing. Tall and thin, wearing a dark coat despite the mild weather. His face was angled away from the camera, but there was something off about his movements. Too fluid, almost like he was gliding. And he wasn't carrying anything, but he was pushing a shopping cart. "Did he ever leave?" I asked. Marcus fast-forwarded through the exit footage until closing. The man never reappeared. Darren returned, looking annoyed. "Manager thinks we're pranking him. He'll be in at 7. "Darren, look at this," I said, showing him the footage of the man entering. He watched it twice, frowning. "So some guy came in before closing." "So what?" "But he never left," Lisa said. Darren sighed. "He probably went out the other exit. The camera there's been glitchy all week." "Then let's find him on the floor cameras," I insisted. Marcus was already searching, scanning through footage from various angles. We found the man walking directly to the back of the store, his cart empty. He moved with strange precision, never browsing, never stopping to look at products. He headed straight for the employee-only doors leading to the stockroom. And then he and the cart disappeared into another 3-second burst of static. "The cameras glitched again," Marcus said. "Or someone edited the footage," Darren repeated, but he sounded less convinced now. "Let's check the stockroom camera," I suggested. The stockroom footage showed nothing. No man, no cart. Just empty aisles of merchandise. "This is ridiculous," Darren said. "Everyone back to work. We've got an hour left on shift." Nobody moved. "No," he insisted. Reluctantly, we filed out. As I passed the break room, I noticed the schedule board and stopped cold. "Darren," I called. "Who's Jonathan Ellis?" Darren looked confused. "Who?" I pointed to the name written on today's overnight shift. "Jonathan Ellis. He's scheduled tonight, but I've never seen him." Darren stared at the board. I didn't write that." "Is he new?" Lisa asked. "No one's been hired for overnight in months," Darren said. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times. "There's no Jonathan Ellis in the system." A crash echoed from the sales floor. We all froze. Then Darren was running, the rest of us following. The sound had come from housewares. As we approached, I could hear something being dragged across the tile. We turned the corner and stopped. The shopping cart was there, in the middle of the aisle. Inside it were dozens of small items, a tube of toothpaste, a bottle of shampoo, batteries, a flashlight, painkillers, bandages, a kitchen knife still in its packaging. one of each item, methodically arranged. And on the floor, drawn in what looked like red marker, was a crude map of the stockroom with an X marked in one corner. "Call the police," I whispered. Darren nodded, already dialing. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They took statements, reviewed the footage. One officer stayed behind with us while 2 others went to check the marked spot in the stockroom. They were gone a long time. When they returned, their faces had changed. They asked us to stay but wouldn't explain why. More officers arrived. Then forensics. They found something behind the drywall in that corner of the stockroom. Something they wouldn't describe, but I overheard one officer say, "partially preserved," and "multiple." They questioned all of us for hours. Checked records going back years. Employee files, schedules, time cards. 3 days later, they arrested the former night manager who had quit 8 months earlier. I recognized his mugshot on the news. It was the thin man from the security footage. The target stayed closed for 2 weeks. When we returned, that section of the stockroom had been completely renovated. No one talked about what had been found there, but everyone knew. They replaced all the shopping carts too. The old ones were taken as evidence. I transferred to day's shift after that. I couldn't handle the quiet of the overnight anymore. Couldn't shake the feeling of being watched by empty spaces. Couldn't stop thinking about that cart moving through the store, collecting its precise inventory of items, trying to tell us something we'd all missed for who knows how long. Sometimes I still see red carts in my dreams, moving with purpose when no one's looking. I wake up checking the corners of my bedroom, half expecting to find one waiting there, empty and patient and perfectly positioned. Because the thing that haunts me most isn't what they found in the wall. It's the question no one could answer. Who wrote Jonathan Ellis on the schedule that night? And why, when I searched social media afterward, did I find dozens of missing persons reports from the last 5 years? All young men who had last been seen entering various Target stores across the country? Men who, according to employee records that no longer exist, had all worked the overnight shift exactly once before disappearing. Just like the name on our schedule. Jonathan Ellis. A name I now see everywhere, in crowds, in article bylines, in employee directories at other stores. A name I've started writing without realizing it. The first time I saw the dog in Target, I thought it was a service animal. It was a medium-sized shepherd mix, well-groomed with intelligent eyes that followed me as I restocked the end-cap display at the end of my first week on night shift. The store had closed an hour earlier, and I assumed it belonged to one of my coworkers. "Whose dog is that?" I asked Melanie, the team lead who was training me. She glanced up from her inventory scanner, forehead wrinkling. "What dog?" When I turned back, the aisle was empty. "Never mind," I muttered. "Must have been seeing things." Melanie laughed. "Night shift will do that to you. Your brain keeps trying to populate an empty store." I nodded, though something about the way the dog had watched me, its head tilted slightly, ears perked forward, had seemed unsettlingly real. 2 nights later, I saw it again. This time in the grocery section, sitting perfectly still beside the refrigerated cases. Again, when I mentioned it to my coworker Marcus, he saw nothing. But after he walked away, I noticed the dog was still there, watching me with those unblinking eyes. I approached slowly, hand extended. "Hey buddy. You lost?" It stood, tail low but not tucked, and trotted around the corner. I followed, wondering if someone had accidentally locked their pet inside at closing. But when I turned the corner, the aisle was empty. "This place is messing with my head," I said to myself. That night after my shift, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing those intelligent eyes. There was something familiar about them. Something almost human. By my second week, I'd spotted the dog 5 more times. Always at a distance. Always gone when others looked. I started taking photos with my phone, but they always came out blurry or showed empty aisles. I began to wonder if Melanie was right, if my brain was just filling the empty store with phantoms. Then I found the first note. It was stuck to my locker in the break room, a small yellow post-it with neat, tight handwriting. "You're the only one who sees. Don't tell the others." I showed it to Melanie, who shrugged it off. "Probably Marcus messing with you. He loves hazing the new people." But Marcus denied it, and so did the other overnight staff. I tried to forget about it, but that night, I saw the dog again. This time, it had something in its mouth, another yellow post-it, which it dropped on the floor before disappearing into the shadows of the seasonal department. The note read, "Check the security office. 2:17 a.m. February 19th. Today's date." I checked my watch, 1:54 a.m. I'd never been in the security office before. It was kept locked, accessible only to management and loss prevention. But as I passed by it on the way to my break, I noticed the door was slightly ajar, a thin line of light spilling onto the hallway floor. I hesitated, then pushed it open. The small room was empty, its walls lined with monitors showing different sections of the store. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. This was definitely against policy. If I got caught, I could lose my job. But I had to know. I checked my watch again, 2:15 a.m. 2 minutes to go. The monitors flickered with empty aisles, motionless displays, silent registers. Nothing unusual. But as the digital clock on the wall ticked over to 2:17, one of the screens changed. Instead of showing the current feed, it began playing what looked like archived footage. The timestamp read February 19th of last year, exactly 1 year ago. The camera showed the store manager's office, where a man I didn't recognize sat behind the desk. He looked nervous, continually glancing at the door. A moment later, someone else entered the frame. The current store manager, Richard Klein. There was no audio, but I could see they were arguing. The seated man kept shaking his head, pointing at what looked like paperwork. Richard's face grew progressively redder until, in a sudden burst of movement, he grabbed a heavy stapler from the desk and swung it. I gasped as the first blow landed. Then another. And another. I wanted to look away but couldn't. The violence wasn't graphic. The angle of the camera obscured the worst of it, but the ferocity was unmistakable. When it was finally over, Richard stood panting over the slumped form of the other man. Then he looked directly at the camera. A chill ran through me as his face registered first shock, then calculation. He reached up toward the corner of the room, toward the camera, and the footage cut to static. I stumbled backward, bumping into a chair. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of sick prank, a manipulated video. But deep down, I knew what I'd seen. I fled the security office, trying to control my breathing. I needed to act normal. If Richard found out I'd seen that footage. As I rounded the corner back to the sales floor, I nearly collided with him. "Jeremy," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "What are you doing back here? Aren't you assigned to electronics tonight?" "Just looking for the bathroom." I lied, my voice surprisingly steady. He studied me for a moment, then nodded toward the hallway. "It's back that way. You look pale. Everything okay?" "Fine," I said. "Just tired. Night shift takes adjustment," he said, patting my shoulder as he moved past me. "By the way, have you noticed anything unusual during your shifts? Any glitches in the equipment, maybe?" I shook my head. "No. Nothing." "Good," he said. "Let me know if you do." I spent the rest of my shift in a fog of fear and confusion. Who had shown me that footage? Who had been killed? And most importantly, why show me? When I got home, I searched online for any news about a death or disappearance at our target location. Nothing came up at first, but then I refined my search to include the date on the footage. There it was, a small article in the local paper. "Local man missing, police seek information." The photo showed the same man I'd seen in the manager's office. Jason Mercer, 42, last seen leaving for his job at Target. The article mentioned he'd recently been promoted to assistant manager, but had only served in the role for 2 weeks before his disappearance. Police suspected he might have left town after withdrawing a large sum from his bank account. The case remained open but inactive. I felt sick. I'd just witnessed a murder that had been successfully covered up for a year. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal while gathering information. I casually asked coworkers about previous managers, learning that Richard had been promoted from assistant manager around the same time Jason disappeared. The official story was that Jason had embezzled money and fled. Everyone believed it. Everyone except, apparently, Jason's dog, a shepherd mix named Cooper that no one had seen since its owner vanished. A dog that, according to Melanie, had been remarkably intelligent. Jason used to joke that Cooper was smarter than most people, she told me. Said he could practically speak sometimes, the way he communicated. I began to understand. The dog I kept seeing, the one no one else noticed, was trying to tell me something. Somehow, it had survived in the store for a year, hiding from everyone, waiting for someone who would see it. Someone who would help expose what had happened. But how could I prove anything? The footage I'd seen had almost certainly been deleted by now. It was just my word against Richard's, and he was well liked, respected. Then I remembered something else from the footage, the paperwork on the desk. What if there was still evidence of whatever dispute had led to the murder? I volunteered for inventory duty, which gave me access to the store's records room. While others counted stock, I discreetly searched through old files. In a box marked for shredding, I found a folder with Jason's name. Inside was a printed email chain between Jason and corporate security. He'd discovered discrepancies in the store's loss prevention numbers, merchandise being marked as damaged or stolen that was actually being resold through an online marketplace account. The last email showed Jason had scheduled a video call with the regional manager for February 20th, the day after he disappeared. I took photos of everything with my phone, then carefully replaced the folder. As I left the records room, I felt something brush against my leg. The dog, Cooper, was there, looking up at me with those intelligent eyes. This time, I didn't question whether he was real. I knelt down. "I understand now," I whispered. "I'll help you." Cooper turned and walked away, glancing back once as if asking me to follow. He led me to a service corridor I'd never noticed before, then through a door that opened onto the loading dock. In the far corner, partially hidden behind some empty pallets, was a small makeshift den, a nest of blankets and flattened cardboard boxes. On one of the boxes was a Target employee ID badge. Jason's badge, chewed around the edges but still intact. And beside it, something that made my blood run cold, a flash drive. I took it home and plugged it into my computer. It contained security footage, the same footage I'd seen in the office, but with one key difference. This version included the 10 minutes after Richard had seemingly shut off the camera. He hadn't actually stopped the recording. He'd only disabled the monitor. The camera kept running as he wrapped Jason's body in a drop cloth, dragged it out of frame, and spent several minutes cleaning the office. Cooper had somehow retrieved this drive. Had Jason given it to him before the confrontation? Had the dog somehow taken it afterward? It didn't matter. What mattered was that I now had proof. I anonymously mailed copies of everything, the footage, the emails, photos of the records, to the police, corporate security, and the local newspaper. Then I quit my job at Target, citing family reasons. 3 days later, Richard was arrested. The case made headlines when police, acting on new evidence, found human remains buried beneath the concrete of a recently renovated storage area in the back of the store. I should have felt relieved. Justice had been served. But something still bothered me. How had Cooper survived undetected in a busy store for an entire year? How had he known which security tape to retrieve? And how had he known to trust me, specifically? Last night, unable to sleep, I drove back to the Target parking lot. The store was closed, dark except for the security lights. As I sat in my car, I noticed movement near the loading dock, a medium-sized dog trotting purposefully across the empty lot. It wasn't Cooper. This dog was a different breed, a retriever mix. But it moved with the same deliberate intention, the same unnerving intelligence in its gaze as it stopped, and stared directly at my car. Behind it, a shadow moved in the darkness of the loading dock, the silhouette of a man, watching. I drove home in a panic, deadbolted my doors, and lay awake until dawn. Because I finally understood what had been nagging at me, the thing I didn't want to admit. It wasn't about a dog living in Target. It was about what, or who, was living inside the dog. This morning, I found a yellow post-it on my front door. The handwriting was familiar, tight and neat. Thank you for your help. See you again someday. I'm moving tomorrow. Far away. But I can't stop thinking about all the other stores out there. All the other secrets waiting to be found. All the other patient, watchful eyes, looking for someone who can see. Have you noticed that woman is here again? Alicia nudged me as we were setting up the seasonal display. I followed her gaze to the woman lingering by the customer service desk. Mid-30s, unremarkable in most ways, except for how frequently she visited our Target store. And how long she stayed. Yeah, I said. 3rd time this week. Try 5th. Alicia corrected. She was here Monday morning when you were off. And yesterday afternoon. The woman, we didn't know her name yet, wore a red shirt and khakis, almost like our uniform but not quite right. She'd spend hours walking the store, occasionally putting items in her cart, but rarely buying anything. She smiled at employees, made small talk, asked detailed questions about our jobs. She applied for a position last month. I told Alicia. Marcus in HR told me she didn't pass the background check. Huh. Alicia arranged a row of decorative pumpkins. Wonder what flagged. I shrugged, but felt a prickle of unease watching the woman. There was something off about her smile. Too wide. Too fixed. Like she was performing happiness rather than feeling it. That was the first week I noticed her. I had no idea she would become the most terrifying person I'd ever encounter. The next Tuesday, I was in the break room when our store director, Ellen, walked in with the woman beside her. Everyone, this is Diane. She's shadowing today to see if she'd be a good fit for our team. My head snapped up. Marcus caught my eye from across the room, his expression mirroring my confusion. He'd explicitly told me she'd failed the background check. Diane smiled that too wide smile, now dressed in a perfect replica of our uniform, down to the name tag. Where had she gotten that? I'm so excited to be part of the Target family, she said, her voice honeyed with enthusiasm. After Ellen left, Marcus pulled me aside. Something's wrong. I didn't process her application. Ellen never consulted HR about this. Maybe it's some new corporate initiative? I suggested. He shook his head. I'm going to call district. This doesn't make sense. But before he could, Ellen summoned him to help with a delivery issue. Diane spent the day following different employees around, shadowing them with that fixed smile, taking notes in a small red notebook. When our shift ended, I saw her leave with Ellen, the two of them talking intently. She lives in my apartment complex, said Alicia as we walked to our cars. I've seen her coming and going. She moved in about a month ago. The same time she first applied here? Alicia nodded. I think she specifically wanted to work at this store. Weird, right? It's just Target. The next day, Diane was back, again shadowing. And the next? By the 4th day, she was working a register, though several employees noted she still wasn't in the system. No employee number. No official paperwork. Ellen insists she's been approved by district. Marcus told me during lunch. But I can't get anyone there to confirm it. So what's going on? I don't know. But something feels really wrong about this. On Friday, I arrived for my closing shift to find the store in subtle disarray. Items on wrong shelves. Price tags mismatched. The break room refrigerator emptied of everyone's lunches. Small things, but strange. Diane was on morning shift, Alicia whispered. She kept rearranging things after the stalkers placed them. And she was asking weird questions. Like what? Where people live. Whether they have families. If they're happy working here. Alicia shivered. The way she asked made my skin crawl. That night, I found a note in my locker. Neatly folded, written in precise handwriting. We're going to be such good friends. I've been watching you. You do things right. No signature, but I knew. I showed the note to Marcus, who immediately took it to Ellen. Ellen called me to her office an hour later. Diane was there, eyes downcast, apologetic. There's been a misunderstanding, Ellen said, her tone professionally neutral but her eyes strangely vacant. Diane was leaving motivational notes for team members she admires. She didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Diane nodded, that same rigid smile in place. I'm so sorry if I overstepped. I'm just eager to connect with my new work family. The word family in her mouth made me shudder. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't. Just maybe ask before leaving notes in people's lockers? Of course. Her voice was syrup-sweet, her eyes never meeting mine. After I left the office, I texted Marcus. Something is very wrong with Ellen. She's not acting like herself. He replied immediately, I know. Meeting in parking lot after close. Bringing Sean from security. That night, as I was gathering my things to leave, Diane appeared beside me. I hadn't heard her approach. You're not being a team player, she said softly, still smiling. Ellen and I talked about you. About your future here. My stomach nodded. I need to go. My ride is waiting. I know. Marcus and Sean, right? In the parking lot? Her smile widened fractionally. I heard you making plans. I hear everything in this store. She leaned closer. It's better if you just accept me. Everyone else has. I hurried past her to the exit, trying not to run. In the parking lot, I found Marcus pacing beside his car. Where's Sean? I asked. He never showed. Not answering texts either. Diane knows we were meeting, I said, my voice shaking. She said she hears everything in the store. Marcus swore under his breath. I'm going to his place to check on him. You should stay somewhere else tonight. Not your apartment. Why? Because Diane asked me for employee addresses last week. I think Ellen gave them to her. Cold fear washed over me. Alicia said Diane lives in her complex. Jesus. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling Alicia right now. No answer. We drove to Alicia's apartment together, tension thick in the car. When we arrived, her door was ajar, lights on inside. Alicia? Marcus called, pushing the door open wider. The apartment was immaculate. Too immaculate. Like it had been recently and thoroughly cleaned. A faint chemical smell hung in the air. Alicia wasn't there. Her phone lay on the kitchen counter, beside a red notebook I recognized as Diane's. I picked it up, hands trembling, and opened it. Pages and pages of notes about Target employees. Work schedules. Home addresses. Daily routines. Family members. Detailed observations about performance, habits, relationships. And a list titled, Replacement Order. Ellen was at the top, crossed out. Sean was second, also crossed out. Alicia's name was third, now with a neat line through it. Marcus was fourth. I was last. We need to go to the police, I whispered. Marcus was staring at something on Alicia's laptop, his face drained of color. Look at this. It was a news article from 2 years ago, about a woman named Patricia Mendel who had been fired from a department store in Cincinnati after stalking multiple employees. She'd been arrested but released on bail, then disappeared. The grainy photo showed Diane, or Patricia, with darker hair and that same fixed smile. There's more, Marcus said, scrolling rapidly. 3 other stores. Different names each time. Employees who complained started disappearing. Eventually she'd be hired, work there for a few months, then vanish when too many questions were asked. Along with the store manager. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I'm disappointed in you both. You could have been part of something special. Check the freezer at the store tomorrow. We're going to the police. No, Marcus said, grabbing my arm. As we turned to leave, The apartment door slowly swung shut. Diane stood behind it, still in her Target uniform, still smiling. Behind her was Ellen, face blank, eyes vacant. I really wanted this to work, Diane said, her voice soft with regret. This was going to be my forever store. My forever family. In her hand was a small canister, pepper spray, I thought at first. But the smell that filled the apartment when she sprayed it was nothing like pepper. It was sweet, chemical, overwhelming. My legs gave out first. Then my vision blurred. The last thing I saw was Diane kneeling beside me, stroking my hair as darkness closed in. Don't worry, she whispered. You'll still work at Target. You just won't remember this unpleasantness. You'll be happy here, like the others. Like me. I woke up in my own bed the next morning with a pounding headache and fragmented memories. Something about Alicia's apartment, something important, but I couldn't piece it together. My phone showed a text from Ellen. Don't forget we have inventory today. All hands on deck. When I arrived at the store, everything seemed normal. Ellen greeted me warmly. Sean was checking in vendors at the loading dock. Alicia was arranging a display, smiling and chatting with customers. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. Where's Marcus? I asked Alicia. Her smile never faltered. Who? Marcus. From HR. We don't have anyone named Marcus in HR, she said, her voice pleasant but her eyes unfocused. Diane handles all our HR needs now. As if summoned by her name, Diane appeared beside me, perfect in her red shirt and khakis, name tag gleaming. Good morning. Ready for a great day at Target? Her smile was wide, practiced, empty. And suddenly I remembered everything. The notebook, the news articles, the spray. Where's Marcus? I demanded, backing away. Her expression didn't change. The freezer has been cleaned already. You missed your chance there. But don't worry about Marcus. He's been reassigned to another store. I'm calling the police, I said, pulling out my phone. Go ahead, Diane replied calmly. Officer Brentwood is already here, doing his daily walkthrough. I'll introduce you. She gestured to a police officer by the electronics section. He waved, smiling that same empty smile I now saw on Ellen, on Alicia, on Sean. You see, Diane continued, placing a hand on my arm. I've worked very hard to make this location perfect. My forever store. My real home. Her grip tightened painfully. And I've chosen you to help me run it. You should feel honored. The others, they weren't quite right. Too resistant. But you pay attention. You notice things. You'll be perfect as my assistant manager. I tried to pull away, but my limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. Had she already drugged me somehow? Don't fight it, she whispered, still smiling. By next week, you won't remember anything was ever wrong. You'll be happy here, with your Target family. With me. Over her shoulder, I saw new employees I didn't recognize, all moving with the same careful precision, all wearing that same vacant smile. How many people had she replaced? How had no one from corporate noticed? Or had they? You're not the first to resist, Diane said, reading my expression. But you'll be the last at this location. I've finally perfected the formula. She patted her pocket, where I could see the outline of the spray canister. One more dose, and you'll be just like the others. Loyal. Obedient. Happy. She leaned closer, her smile never wavering. And then we can start working on the Walmart across the street. They have so many employees who need improvement. As she reached for the canister, I realized with dawning horror that this wasn't just about one Target store or one obsessed woman. It was the beginning of something much larger. And the most terrifying part? When I looked into Diane's empty, smiling eyes, I could already feel myself starting to forget why I should be afraid. I came back to work the next day. And the next. I love my job at Target now. We all do. Come visit us sometime. Diane says we're always looking for new family members. Just make sure you wear red. The first red flag should have been the mirrors. When David Palmer took over as store manager of Target number 2476, the changes were subtle at first. New motivational posters in the break room. Team meetings that ran longer than scheduled. Performance metrics posted daily, with our names ranked from highest to lowest. "We're going to be the model store," he'd announce, pacing in front of us with the intensity of a coach before a championship game. "The one they use to train other managers. The one corporate studies." Most of us shrugged it off. New managers always arrived with big plans and enthusiastic speeches. But David was different. His eyes burned with something beyond ambition, something closer to obsession. The mirrors appeared in month 2. Small, discreet ones positioned throughout the store, behind registers, at the ends of aisles, in the stock room. Each one angled to give a perfect view of employees working. "It's for self-monitoring," David explained when I asked about them. "Studies show people perform better when they can see themselves working." By month 3, our store's metrics had improved dramatically. Sales up. Shrinkage down. Customer satisfaction scores climbing. Corporate sent a congratulatory email, which David printed and displayed on what he'd started calling the victory wall. But the mood among employees had darkened. The constant feeling of being watched, by David, by the mirrors, by each other, created a tension that vibrated through the store like a plucked wire. Then came the cameras. "They're not connected to the network," David assured us during a mandatory 6 a.m. meeting. "This is just for internal improvement. For us to study our techniques." These weren't the standard security cameras Target already had installed. These were smaller, more numerous, and controlled exclusively by David. They captured everything: how we arranged merchandise, how we interacted with customers, how long our breaks lasted. He started holding what he called performance reviews, forcing us to watch footage of ourselves working while he pointed out inefficiencies and suggested improvements. "Watch your movements here, Jessica," he'd say, rewinding and replaying a clip of me restocking a shelf. "You're wasting at least 3 seconds per item with that approach." The day I found a camera in the employee restroom, I confronted him. "This crosses a line," I said, placing the small device on his desk. "I'm pretty sure it's illegal." David didn't even look surprised. He just picked up the camera, turning it over in his hands like it was a curious artifact. "You know why Target is failing nationally?" he asked, his voice eerily calm. "Inefficiency. Waste. Chaotic implementation of corporate directives by managers who don't understand the larger vision. That doesn't justify. My store will be different," he continued as if I hadn't spoken. "My methods will be studied, implemented across the country. But first I need complete data. Complete control." I reported the bathroom camera to our district manager that afternoon. He promised to investigate. 2 days later, he visited our store, had a closed-door meeting with David, and left without speaking to any other employees. The bathroom camera didn't reappear, but David's attitude toward me chilled considerably. "Jessica has decided she doesn't want to be part of our success story," he announced at the next morning meeting, staring directly at me. "That's her choice. But choices have consequences." My hours were cut. My shifts were changed to the least desirable times. Coworkers began avoiding me, afraid of being associated with the store pariah. Yet our store's numbers continued to climb. We became the top-performing location in the district, then the region. Corporate representatives visited, taking notes and photos. David was featured in the company newsletter. What they didn't see was what happened after hours. I'd been assigned to closing shifts exclusively, which meant I was one of the few who witnessed the real changes David was making. After customers left, he would reorganize entire sections of the store, deviating from corporate planograms. He replaced official Target signage with his own versions, featuring slightly different wording, alternate fonts. "The official layouts are inefficient," he explained when I questioned him. "My research shows these adjustments increase sales by 4.7% per square foot. But corporate requires standardized layouts." He smiled thinly. "By the time they realize our success will justify the modifications." I started taking photos, documenting the deviations. I wasn't sure why at first, maybe to protect myself, maybe to build a case. But as weeks passed, the changes became more significant. David began altering price points, creating his own sales that weren't approved by corporate. He modified the employee schedule system to register breaks as shorter than they actually were. He even started ordering inventory directly from manufacturers, bypassing Target's supply chain. "We're cutting out the middleman," he told the bewildered vendors on the phone. "Target number 2476 is implementing a pilot program for direct purchasing." There was no such program. I checked. Yet nobody from corporate seemed to notice, or if they did, they were too impressed with our store's performance to interfere. We had become the darling of quarterly reports, held up as an example for other locations to follow. Meanwhile, employee turnover skyrocketed. People quit without notice, often after one of David's performance reviews. He'd replace them immediately with new hires who received intensive training directly from him, isolated from other employees, taught his methods rather than standard Target protocols. The breaking point came when I discovered the surveillance room. It was a converted storage closet near David's office, accessible only with a key code. I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't been searching for a missing box of receipt paper and noticed David entering the code 2-4-7-6, our store number. After my shift, when David was in a district conference call, I tried the code. The door opened to reveal a small room lined with monitors displaying feeds from dozens of cameras, far more than I'd realized existed. Some showed the interior of employees' cars in the parking lot. Others, horrifyingly, seemed to be from outside the store. I recognized one feed as the apartment complex where several team members lived. But the center monitor displayed something else entirely. Lines of code, database entries, numbers flowing continuously. It took me a moment to recognize what I was seeing. David had created a parallel inventory and sales tracking system, one that reported to corporate but retained control locally. He was essentially running a store within a store, presenting the data corporate expected while implementing his own systems behind the scenes. As I stood frozen in shock, a voice came from behind me. "I knew you'd find this eventually." David stood in the doorway, expression unreadable. "What are you doing?" I asked, gesturing at the screens. "This is insane. This," he said, stepping into the room, "is the future. Target as it should be, data-driven, efficient, uncompromising. It's not Target anymore. It's whatever you want it to be." "Exactly." His face lit with an almost evangelical fervor. "They've given me complete autonomy because of our numbers. No one questions success. I'm reporting this," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "All of it." "To whom? Corporate?" He laughed softly. "They're already implementing some of my methods in other stores. The district manager is using my results to advance his career. No one wants to look too closely at how the magic happens. This isn't legal. The surveillance alone is necessary." His voice hardened. "You think Target became successful by following rules? Sam Walton used to visit competitors' stores and measure their shelves with a tape measure. He'd send spies to track their deliveries. Business is warfare, Jessica." "I quit," I said simply, moving toward the door. He stepped aside, surprisingly. "That's your choice. But remember," he gestured at the monitors, "I'll know if you talk about this." I walked out that night and never returned. Filed a complaint with corporate HR that went nowhere. Tried contacting a local news reporter who seemed intrigued until suddenly they weren't. Even posted anonymously online, only to have the post removed for misinformation. 6 months later, Target announced a new store excellence initiative, based on methods pioneered at a location in our district. David was promoted to regional manager, overseeing implementation of his techniques. The press release included a photo of him standing proudly beside corporate executives, his smile wide but his eyes still burning with that same intensity. I moved to another state, took a job at a small local business. Tried to forget. Then last week, I walked into the Target near my new home. It was just supposed to be a quick trip for toiletries and household supplies. But as I moved through the aisles, a familiar discomfort crept over me. The mirrors were there. Small, discreet, angled precisely. At checkout, I casually asked the cashier about them. "Oh, those are new," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "For self-monitoring. Our new manager says they help us perform better." "What's your manager's name?" I asked, throat suddenly dry. "David?" "No, wait, Daniel. Daniel Palmer. He just transferred here last month." On my way out, I noticed a small camera nestled in the leaves of a decorative plant. Then another, hidden in a ceiling fixture. And in the parking lot, a man standing by the entrance, watching customers come and go, making notes on a clipboard. He looked up as I passed, and though I'd never seen him before, I recognized the fervor in his eyes. When I got home, I immediately checked Target's corporate website. There it was, buried in a press release about regional reorganization, expanding the store excellence initiative to all locations by year-end. That night, I dreamed of red shirts and khaki pants, of mirrors reflecting mirrors into infinity, of cameras that followed me from room to room in my own home. This morning, I received an email from Target's corporate HR department. A job offer, for a position I never applied for. The message was brief. "Your experience at store number 2476 has been noted. We believe you'd be an excellent addition to our new compliance team. David specifically recommended you." The signature line included a photo of the sender. She was smiling in a way that didn't reach her eyes, and behind her, just visible in the background, was a wall of monitors. I'd been sitting here for hours, staring at that email, my finger hovering over the delete button. But I can't seem to press it. Because part of me wonders, what if David was right? What if his way is better? What if efficiency and complete control are the future? And a smaller, more terrified part of me knows the truth. The initiative has already spread too far to stop. Target stores across the country are being remade in David's image, becoming something new and hungry, watching and learning and growing. My phone pings with a text from an unknown number. "We're waiting for your response. The model store needs you." Outside my window, I notice a small red light blinking. A camera, nestled in the branch of a tree. Watching. Waiting. I start typing my acceptance. "Thanks so much for watching. I can't express enough how much your support means. The likes, the comments, it all really helps the channel grow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I always take the time to read them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time.